Good afternoon, good Thursday afternoon to all of our participants in our weekly Innovative Business Advisors webinar. We have an exciting presentation today, but we do also have an update. So let me first just talk about the portal here, logistically how we're going to conduct the webinar, and then we'll jump right into the content of our webinar. So first, we are on the Zoom portal. And you should see at the bottom of your screen a series of avatars, if you will, that allow you to chat or to post your questions and answers. We are asking you for the duration of this webinar, use the Q&A button if you want to make comments or ask questions. As a matter of fact, I will go a step further as I introduce our main panelists today. Our panelists will be bringing specific questions to you, and we're going to ask you to use that portal to actually type in responses or comments around what he will be doing. So make sure you know where that Q&A button is. Apart from that, everything is as it has been. I see a lot of names in the participant list who've been here with us before, so you all know the process for this webinar. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and tell you who we have on the webinar today. So 3 of us are participating. Steve Denny, who will give us the update on the CARES Act, and he will actually facilitate the discussion with our guest panelist. Our guest panelist is Bill Prenatt, and Bill is founder and principal co-owner of Simply Successful. Simply Successful is a business that he runs and operates in partnership with his wife and Prenatt. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Steve. Steve is going to give us a quick update on the CARES Act, and then he will introduce and facilitate the conversation with Bill.
Excellent. Marquita, thank you so much. We are so appreciative of you giving us your Thursday afternoons to moderate these panels for us. And we know with the set of questions that Bill's going to bring to us today, you may have to work harder this week than in weeks past, but we're very appreciative of your participation. So folks, I just want to start with a quick update. We've talked on this channel week by week for the last 8 months about the CARES Act, the Main Street Lending Program, which is the program that was designed to provide fast and immediate lending for small and medium-sized businesses throughout the country that's being administered by the Federal Reserve Bank. As we talked a few weeks ago, they lowered the threshold from $250,000 down to $100,000. And over the course of the last week or so, they've added a new piece to their portal, which allows you to click on a map of the United States, select your state, click on your state, and then you can get a quick drop down of all of the banks that are participating in the program. It's interesting to note that since they dropped the threshold from $250,000 loan down to a $100,000 loan, there has been a huge amount of lending that's taken place. So no danger that they're going to run out of funds, but we just want to remind you that it's there and it's a nice resource, so you can click on that and find out which banks in our local areas are providing that lending platform. So with that, we want to take today, and we've got a very interesting topic for you, and we're going to start by talking a little bit about IBA for a minute. And as most of you know, IBA is a company that provides a lot of business services. Some of you are aware of the fact that we do some coaching, and in the past have done a considerable amount of education. So I want to just take a quick minute here and review what we do. From a services standpoint, we help people buy and sell businesses. That's our bread and butter, and we've been doing that for many, many years. We provide a full service range of services for both buyers and sellers, and then we even have a service for folks that are interested in selling on their own. And we have what we call the Help You Sell model that's helped several small companies in that regard as well. In addition to that, we do a tremendous amount of valuation services, and folks that have been faithful listeners to our channel are very familiar with my partner, Terry Lammers, who is a certified valuation analyst, and Terry runs our valuation group. In addition to providing a lot of valuations for deals and for lenders on deals, we also provide a subscription service for business owners so that they can get their own business evaluated on a regular recurring basis. And we recommend every other year, just to make sure that they're staying on top of the fact that the value in their business is changing, and hopefully make sure that they're on top of the fact that they're doing everything they can to increase that value over time. So in addition to that, you guys have heard us talk a lot about our CEO to CEO coaching program. We also have the Business Profit Improvement Program over on teachable.com, which is a platform that allows you to go in and learn some business fundamentals about how to improve the profitability of your company. We have the value growth model for folks that are interested in exit at some point in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years and want to make sure that they get the maximum value of their company. That's a short program that teaches them how to put all the ducks in order so that you can really maximize the value of your company on exit. And then our newest program is what we call the Buyer's Path to Ownership, which is a 13-week program that teaches buyers that have never owned businesses before how to walk down that path and ultimately end up owning a business. What we haven't talked a lot about before is some of the education stuff that Innovative is really keyed in on. First and foremost, we've got a series of books. You don't know what you don't know.com is the website where you can learn about those. Our second book will be coming out here over the holidays, and we've got a couple of other books that are almost ready for the editing process and should be released in the near future. Our ultimate vision is to have quite a collection, and Terry and I have outlined at least a dozen so far that we anticipate writing. And we're pushing Marquita to help us write one of them, which is going to be a really interesting book that we're anxious to get in on.
I see Marquita going, no.
But boy, does she have a great story to share.
No, I keep telling you, Steve, there's no book in me.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
You know, Marquita, he's not a good listener sometimes.
Well, you know, when you've got
He's
that level of knowledge.
Persuasive. Don't be surprised if you don't see a title with my name on it.
There you go. I love it. Many of you may be aware that in the past we used to run seminars and events, and we did a considerable amount of those through 2019. We took a pause in the fall of 2019 as we were regrouping for 2020, and then our Chinese cousin came and visited us, and the world has changed. But an amazing opportunity came across to us earlier this summer, and that is with Bill Prenatt and his organization, which is called Experts for Entrepreneurs. So Bill's going to come in and talk to us a little bit today about Experts for Entrepreneurs, and we see it as just an incredible resource for the entrepreneurial and small business community, and we're very, very excited to be participating with them in the future. So I want to give you guys just a quick overview. You can go to E4Ecommunity.com and it'll take you to this site. Let me tell you what E4E is all about, or Experts for Entrepreneurs. It's a premier community of entrepreneurs that are committed to helping business owners succeed and live out their dreams. It's an unbelievable collection of folks that come together once a month on the third Wednesday of each month and spend a couple of hours together in a large group setting. And what happens in that setting? The primary thing is knowledge. Knowledge is conveyed. This is a group of trusted advisors and really experienced business owners who have business-to-business companies. And they come together and spend a couple of hours every month and provide 3 defined programs. The first one is what they call the Run program, which is a presentation that's designed to provide tips, tricks, resources, additional knowledge on how to really run your business better and more successfully. The second presentation each month is focused on grow. How do you grow the business? How do you take it from where you are now to where you want to go with it in the future? And then finally, the third presentation, maybe the most impactful of all, is how to really live out the dream that you have for yourself personally and for your business and family life. And Bill and his wife Ann started this journey about 10 years ago. They've got an amazing following here in St. Louis with this, and we're just very excited to be partnering with them. So Bill, with that, I want to turn it over to you, and I know you've got a presentation to share with us, and say welcome to our webinar today.
I'm honored, Stephen, to be here. Marquita, thank you for joining us today too. Really appreciate your facilitation. Steve, can I, there we go.
Yep, I'm going to stop the share and give you the control, Bill.
There we go. That's a dangerous thing to do, Steve.
I have faith.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that?
I have faith.
Can you guys see that screen? Are you seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we see it.
Okay. Every once in a while, I forget to ask that question. I get about 10 minutes into the presentation. People are like, "Oh, excuse me, but you might want to show us the presentation." So
you need to click it into presentation mode, but you got your
you mean
screen up
there's more to do?
There you
How's
go.
that? Is that good?
Perfect.
Yeah. So thank you. So I'm honored to be here today with you, Stephen, and I think you and I met, I don't know what, maybe a couple of years ago now at one of our meetings.
I think so.
We go that far back. Interestingly enough, our backgrounds are very similar. Since we both worked for contract food service companies, it was kind of interesting to get caught up. There are not a lot of people, Steve, who could identify with, oh, contract food service, but
it's a small fraternity.
Yeah, but we knew right away. But how did I get into this whole thing? Well, I spent the first few years after I left corporate America, and it was very frustrating. And I just decided that the only way really that I was going to meet people was to start something of my own. And so E4E was born that way. But I am absolutely passionate about people achieving their potential. I'm passionate about me achieving my potential. The group is passionate about seeing people achieve their potential. And we just love to share what we've learned very unselfishly. I mean, we know that we're going to be repaid back some way, and we don't really worry about that. But so I'm really excited. My core competency really is sales. I learned most of that, interestingly enough, as a purchasing agent earlier in my career, because I would have salespeople call on me all the time. And I said to myself, I don't want to be that guy. I don't really want to be that man or woman, because they just didn't seem to do a very good job presenting. And so what I've tried to do today is to put together kind of a collage, if you will, of things that I've learned. They're the things that I talk about if someone were to hire me over a couple of day training program. So this is kind of a brief boiled down version of that. So being successful in sales requires us to manage a lot of moving parts, much like putting a puzzle together. Today, we'll attempt to give you the box cover to the puzzle for you to follow as you build your sales puzzle. It's important to note that there's a shift in what buyers expect from sellers today. Buyers no longer are interested in being sold transactionally. They can look up what they need to know on the seller's website. They demand that sellers provide value. The days of using pre-planned sales pitches are becoming obsolete. Buyers are looking to build deeper relationships with sellers. Building authentic relationships engages the prospect in a buying process where we exchange information, become credible, and anticipate and handle resistance to change. The key is that sellers build a level of trust throughout the selling cycle. I've illustrated here several different components of trust. And of course, the key is being authentic. You know, we just can't pretend anymore. People are way too smart for us to do that. So we have to really be very authentic in the way we go about getting trust today. So the 5 C's of trust are concern, candor, and competence. So concern is us just letting people know that we care. Candor, being straight, being honest. If you don't know, don't pretend. And competence, know how products or services meet customers' needs. These 3 components are critical to building trust. But these components are wrapped up in these 2 components, and they round out the other 2, which is consistent communications. Consistent communications is critical to trust. One final point before we dive into the 3 components of sales success. Over time, sellers are required to find a balance between the quality, how well, and the quantity, how many of our prospects. A successful sales plan requires both components, and you'll see here I'm marking that with the sweet spot where they intersect. Sellers tend to shoot from the hip when we're selling. Today, we plan to share 3 systems that we have found essentially to sustainable sales growth. Before we do that, what questions do you have? This is a good time. If you've got a few questions up until now, please go ahead and as Marquita mentioned, put them in the sales chat, and we'll interrupt the presentation as we go, because I would rather answer your questions than this continue the presentation. So Marquita, if you get anything that people want to talk about, just don't hesitate to interrupt me, okay? So most of us are familiar with the term sales funnel. For our purposes, the sales funnel takes us through each step of the relationship building for target prospects from beginning to conclusion, ending in yes, or the prospect leaving the funnel and put into some sort of software to be targeted at a different time or in a different way. In order to fill the pipeline, we can either communicate with people we know over here, or we can communicate with people that we do not know. We seem to get the best results in sales when we use a combination of both strategies. When we are marketing to prospects, we don't know, we should have a strategy to find them, and also a strategy for them to find us. Simply put, the concept is to take people who are cold, who have heard about us, to people who are warm and who people know about us, into hot prospects, and ultimately into boiling fans and clients. I was trained to differentiate between clients and customers. To me, customers are people who just do business one-off. Our business focuses on clients, which are people that we sell, who really are looking for a relationship. Unfortunately, people who just buy one-offs typically are going to buy by price. And so we work with people who are interested in actually providing relationships. So I'm not going to delve into marketing. It's unique to each business situation and can be difficult to measure your return on your investment. However, you can view several marketing videos on the E4E community web YouTube that Steve mentioned channel by marketing experts from E4E. Believe it or not, out of the 20 companies that are part of E4E, 10 of them are in marketing in one way or the other. So I recommend that what you do, if you'd like to know more about the marketing that we talk about, is that you go and look at additional videos there on our YouTube site. As we move to step 2 in the process, we determine if the relationship is viable or if the prospect will exit. If they're viable, sometimes that happens, right? They're not all viable people for us to sell. We begin to prioritize this prospect in our funnel of activities. The foundation of step 2 is built on how well we communicate with the prospect, how we engage the prospect, offer solutions to their problems, and learn about the various buyers' roles are all critical to the success of stage 2. This quote from Plato clarifies the seller's role in my mind, which is to ask questions and listen. As you may know, this is quite different because it's not been that long ago, and there are still a lot of people who are out there trying to teach us how to manipulate and sell that way. My experience has been that no longer works well, and that what we really have to do is to get really good at asking questions. In the process, it's important that we keep the situation simple. Buyers buy because they are looking for what's in it for them to buy from you, or they're trying to solve a serious problem and they perceive that you can help them solve that problem. One of the most common mistakes that sellers make is that they jump into the features of their product before they jump into finding out about the benefits of the product. This usually ends up in the buyer becoming resistant to your offer. And so I can't talk enough about always starting with the benefit and then following it up with features.
Bill, I have to mention to you, I got this from a discussion that you had presented some years ago as well, and you talked about value able, right? And
Yes.
I believe
Yeah.
you also introduced the concept of response able instead of responsible.
Yes.
Going back to the root of the word and how you have to use your thinking cap, right, and
Yeah.
to respond in an able manner to the active listening that you're doing with the prospect, and that really
Yeah.
stuck with me over these years. So
Yeah.
you're one of the few people I've ever
Yeah.
heard call that out that way, and I think I don't want that to go unseen here on your
Yeah.
presentation, because
Yeah.
I've noticed that you've put that in here throughout.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, Stephen, you know, where I really picked that up was when I was a buyer, not when I was a seller.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, sitting on the other side of the table, listening to people yammer on and on and on and on. I'll tell you a real quick story. So I'm out in California at our headquarters, and this guy says to me, "Oh, I got to get in to see you, Bill." I said, "Well, you know what? I'll see you during lunch, but bring your questions so that we have a really," he never asked me a question during the entire presentation. Not
Wow.
one question. Came in, talked on and on and on, and then he left. So that, you don't have to experience too many situations like that as a buyer. And I had a $400 million price tag on my head. So it doesn't like I, would have been worthwhile coming up with a few questions, but which is a great segue, Steve, to this particular slide, because unfortunately, most people don't do a very good job of planning their sales calls. So if you don't have a format that you already use to plan out your sales calls, we recommend that you develop one that suits your situation. One of the things that I learned many years ago is make sure that I know who it is that I'm really trying to sell. And so what is the role of the people that you're selling? Are they a user buyer? Are they the people who are going to use your products? Are they the price buyer? Is it the technical buyer? Can they be a coach? Very seldom do I get involved in the sales process where I won't develop an internal coach in the company who will help me figure out who these people are and what they're looking for. It's probably one of the least practiced things that I know. But again, that was learned all through, being a buyer. But
So specific to our shared industry as well, back in the hospitality business, right?
Oh,
that I used to think of the coach as my internal cheerleader. If I didn't have an internal cheerleader, my job was a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, isn't it amazing? I mean, why guess, right?
Right. Right.
Why guess when you could have somebody tell you what to do?
Yep.
All you have to do is just be a little humble. But the only bad sales call planner that I would say is the one that you never develop to utilize. So, a sales call planner is something that you have to develop for yourself. I think it's unique to your business, but it's so critical that people have a planner to call. So we've been talking a lot about questions. What kinds of questions? I have a questions library that I've built over the years, that it has 250 questions in it that I use. And so just to keep it simple for me, I'm kind of a simple guy. The name of the company is Simply Successful, is I go to that don't reinvent my questions every time. I just go to that library and I go, well, what questions do I want to, and if I end up with, say, 3 to 5 questions as starter questions, it usually works out really well. So we've talked a lot about asking questions as an important component to the sales call. Questions that engage the prospect in a discussion are the most effective method of questioning. It is important to ask the questions at the right time as well. The key questions are who, what, when, why, where, how, and tell me about. It's interesting. I just recently started spending a lot more time on LinkedIn, and I had forgotten as I was trying to start conversations with people on LinkedIn that, I might want to go back to my roots here and do a better job of asking these open-ended questions even on LinkedIn. So it was kind of an experience that I had forgotten about.
Did you find it to work just as well on LinkedIn when you started using open-ended questions?
The first week I started, not good. The next 3 people that I started asking open-ended questions, it was like perfect. So it's amazing. Even on LinkedIn, it was very successful.
So Bill, since you mentioned LinkedIn, let's just kind of pause a quick minute and talk about tools for prospecting and approaches to prospecting, because one of the things that I see on a tool like LinkedIn, and I'm really the point I'm getting to is I'm curious to hear your opinion around LinkedIn as a tool for selling. I see clearly the networking opportunity there, but lately over the course of the last, I would say it's been almost 2 years, maybe 3 years now, I feel inundated within LinkedIn with the Autobot sellers that are coming to me on LinkedIn. And, I look at it at a point earlier on when I started seeing these, I said, whoever did this is brilliant, because what a tool to be able to quickly reach a large number of people and get out there and kind of work through potential prospects and root out who really could be a good prospect. More lately here, I'm just unimpressed with it. It's just so repetitive. It's almost an aggravation. And to that end, that's LinkedIn as I see it, as Marquita sees it. I have seen the same sorts of waves in use of tools and approaches in marketing over time. And that is, what tools do we use to find those prospects, to identify those prospects? Email, for instance. And so the question I put to you is, where are we in terms of what's truly effective with those kinds of tools? And you can save this question till later if you want. Or what do we see coming that would grab me? Because if I get one more LinkedIn invitation, I'm sort of like,
I want to make sure I don't
with LinkedIn.
I don't want to be that one that sends you that one.
Yeah. But I'm curious as to your thoughts, Bill, on that.
Marquita, I wonder how much different would you feel if it was professionally done? If the people who were contacting you were asking you questions about you, asking you questions, do you think that would make a difference, or would you feel the same way?
Bill, you kind of are hitting the nail on the head, because I go back to the chart where you said a C word for authentic.
Yeah.
Whatever that word was.
Yeah.
And that's what I see is these notes that are popping into my inbox on LinkedIn are almost seem like boilerplate.
Yeah.
And the process of really wanting to network with me and understand, or even ask me a question, is not there. It's some different process for trying to determine if I could potentially be a prospect or not.
Yeah. And to answer your question directly, there is never a substitute for referrals, right? I mean, when it comes to growing your business, having you or Steve tell somebody about me and about my company, clearly, hands down, never going to be beaten. Unfortunately, and one of the reasons why I started just more recently working on LinkedIn is because it's going to become a bigger deal, right? I mean, with the pandemic and with people not being able to interact the way they could, my take on it is, and I'm investing money in this, is that you're going to have to be able to do both.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I am not gonna stop, getting referrals, but by the same token, I felt like I needed to start, reaching out in a different way. But you remember that slide on quality and quantity though, Marquita,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It gets back to that, right? It's not about going out and trying to hunt a bunch of people. It's still going to boil down to quality and quantity and quality. So
Agreed.
I don't know if I answered your question, but I learned that question. I had to relearn that a little bit because I started out being one of those people that you're talking about. And I hired a coach, someone who specializes in this. And that really was a great reminder because he said, you're starting to act just like the guy that you don't want to be. And so that little voice in my ear helped me out. And I think it made a big difference. So
good. Okay.
Great question though. I feel that the trend is such that we're never going back to things the way they were before, where people are going to be just forgetting about all this. I believe there's going to be a new trend, and I'm kind of betting on that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Steve,
let me remind everyone, if you have questions, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A portal. I don't see any questions right now, but go ahead and as a question pops into your mind, type it in for us. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Steve, any thoughts on that? You might have some thoughts about that.
Well, I think I tend to agree with you in terms of I believe that with all of the social media that's available out there, I think it's even easier these days to see who's really authentic and who's not, because there's so much of that automated touch that takes place. And I think you're right, Bill. I think in many regards, whatever happened in the past is not going to inform the way it's done successfully in the future.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of, what do they call that? A sea change, a big change. I think we're in the middle of that, So as you do, one of the things that I want to point out to you, though, something that's not highly understood, is that there is a correct order in which to ask questions. We happen to use this term EGO, but if you can think about engage, genuine interest, and opportunities, because, and to your point, Marquita, these people who are trying to come to you, they're starting here. They want to talk to you. Hey, look at all these opportunities. If they would just engage you, I think you would feel that things are going to turn out a little bit differently.
I agree with you, Bill. And I think that if they came at me in a way that I didn't even recognize them as a salesperson in that first note, it would engage me much more than the classic, here's my product boilerplate kind of a note to me. Yeah.
One of my really short accomplishments already on this was, Steve, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a fellow that's from North Carolina that was at our E4E meeting on Wednesday. Met him through LinkedIn. And so I was really excited to have him. And he said that's exactly, you're very consistent, and so it does work. Now, is it gonna, remember, I'm not looking for 1,000 people. I'm just looking for a handful of really good clients. But so it does work. So, but we want to prioritize, right? So engage questions. So engage questions are questions that typically come from research that you've done on the buyers or the buyer's customers. They illustrate that you have done your homework. And to your point, Marquita, if people come to you and they haven't done your homework, given what's out there, I mean, on LinkedIn, people tell you what their website is. They tell you what their email address is. They tell you what their phone number is. So if you're not using that in an intelligent way, right? If you don't take advantage of that, they're just gonna throw you aside just the way you feel. So the first kind of question that's critical is the engage question. The second is genuine interest. So how are you going to show genuine interest? These questions typically discover challenges or issues related to the buyer or to the buyer's customers. The third are opportunities questions. These you have to earn the right to ask these questions. I want to repeat that. You have to earn the right to ask opportunities questions. You cannot just start talking to people about opportunities until you've earned the right by engaging them and expressing genuine interest. Marquita, any thoughts or questions about that? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And, I find it very interesting earlier on, Bill, that you said, the old way is not the way. There is a new way in the future, and that we're on the cusp, if you will, of reaching that new way. But I didn't tell you when we talked earlier, I used to sell for IBM.
Oh,
And
wow.
that
Sure.
was my basic. I trained for 18 months before I ever was turned loose in front of a client.
Yeah.
But in that process, I mean, here, many years later, I'm not going to tell you how many decades later, I can remember the details of that sales approach. And step number one was building rapport.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you practiced it and you practiced it and you practiced it. And I think you're right, is even though that was a different process in that we were face to face and, making telephone calls to find those prospects, we didn't ask these kinds of questions. You just didn't move to this phase until you had made that connection and had built rapport with that client.
Yeah. I'll bet even to this day, you still practice those same things, don't you though?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah. You don't shake that. It's embedded.
Yeah, it's embedded.
So this is a good time, by the way, if anyone has questions about the successful sales call, please don't hesitate to dump those in there and we'll address them. So the ultimate test of the relationship between the seller and the buyer is the level of engagement that occurs in the sales conversations. So to your point, Marquita, I refuse to move on in my sales conversations until I feel like I've engaged the person in a discussion. It is so, because what I learned as a buyer was the minute I start talking, they start telling me, well, I don't need that, and I don't need that, and I don't need that. So, the seller's over there going through their checklist of stuff, and the buyer's going, I don't need all that, right? So I learned as a buyer, probably best to not get involved in all of that. So we can kill an opportunity based on the way that we anticipate and handle buying resistance. Buyer resistance is an indicator that the sales process is about to change course. How sellers handle the resistance will put the odds in their favor for a positive outcome. But first, what do we mean by buyer resistance? We recommend sellers use these 4 steps to handle buyer resistance when the needs of the buyer are perceived as being known. 1, asking questions to clarify. Show that you're listening. Understand the customer's concern. Slow it down. You're not in a hurry. Take some time. Build rapport, as you said, Marquita. Paraphrase without using the negative aspect of the resistance. Respond with benefits that matter to the customer. Test for reaction. And I suspect that looks pretty familiar to you.
You know what we called it? Feature advantage reaction. FAR. I mean, 50 years ago, I learned this stuff, Bill.
Marquita, you ought to be doing this presentation. Steve, I think we got the wrong person here. I should be facilitating, and Marquita should be doing this. Huh? Oh. So this stuff works, you guys, right? I mean, Marquita, I know you know. Steve, I know you know. This is, we're not just talking here. When you do things this way, your ability to actually build rapport with people goes up exponentially.
Timeless principles are timeless principles because they work regardless of the time.
Isn't that amazing? Did you
know,
just coin that phrase or what?
No.
You're right, Stephen. I think it's because people are people no matter what. I mean, even
Exactly.
in the days of COVID and super tech opportunities to surround that prospecting and selling process with, people are still people, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and they're the same. They're not any different than they were 10 years ago when you were working
Mhm.
for IBM.
You're being kind, Bill.
IBM still wishes they had her.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, their stock would be doing a little differently.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah. So one of the things that's not commonly known about paraphrasing, though, is that because people can be a little careless about this, it's important to not bring out the negative aspect of the resistance itself. So if someone says, you know, your price is too high, you don't say to them, oh, so Marquita, your price is too high. You don't bring the negative aspect of the resistance back into the discussion. So just one point that frequently is misunderstood and is not well done. So open-ended questions are important questions that that will help us when we're creating versus introducing a need. So there are times when the customer doesn't know that they even have a need. So open-ended questions are just fantastic when it comes to helping to create versus just identify a need. The 4 recommended steps to creating needs awareness are just a little different. You summarize the customer's point of view, ask questions and make statements about the consequences of not taking action, reinforce the benefits of taking action, and then once again, testing for reaction. So again, if there are any questions about any of this, I know we're covering a lot of stuff pretty quickly. Please don't hesitate to interrupt if you'd like to talk more. So having said all of this, you're going to get knocked down in selling. You are going to get knocked down in selling. And the key is not getting knocked down, it's how well we get back up.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think I've learned over the years is, I mean, I go into a sales call not as, oh, gee, I'll bet this is really going to work out. I go into it as I really wonder what this potential client's going to say to me that's going to just knock me right down. And I think I do better because I don't suffer these big highs and lows because I do anticipate resistance when we get into it. So in order to be successful at sales, we have to have a belief in ourselves and our ability to deliver on our commitments. If we aren't confident that we can do what we said we're going to do, then we shouldn't be offering those things to our clients, because it will come across to the client as you not being confident is what you're doing. So having been doing this for some 50 years, one of the things that I've learned is that winning in sales is a mindset. You have to be able to see lemonade even though you're served lemons. While product knowledge, systems, and persuasive ability are all important components of the sales success, none of them trumps the drive to achieve regardless of the circumstances. So all of these things we've just been talking about are great, but if you don't have the drive to achieve, it's exponentially makes these all so much better. That completes our picture. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of a box to the puzzle here that you've purchased today called Selling. And if you'd like to know more, you can go to Experts for Entrepreneurs, E for E Community, or call me at 636-484-0208. So I've really enjoyed being here today, and hopefully you've learned a few things. Steve?
Bill, I want to share something with you. I'm not sure whether you've ever seen this, but there's an amazing young man out there, marketing guy by the name of Ryan Dice. Have you ever heard of Ryan Dice?
Just heard the name.
Well, Ryan Dice has got what he calls an open letter from an apathetic customer. It's one of,
wow.
I carry this in my notebook, and I encourage you and the rest of our listeners to go out and Google it and read it and spend some time thinking about that.
Say that again, Steve. What was it now?
It's called an open letter from an apathetic customer. And Ryan Dice is the author of this, and it is absolutely masterful. It's about the conversation going on in the customer's head while you're talking to them. And I think if this won't give you a little humility and underscore what you just described in terms of thinking about pre-call planning and the questions that you want to ask and how you're going to approach to engage the potential individual, I don't know of a more powerful hammer to use in that regard.
I love that, Steve. Thank you. You know, this never ceases to amaze me when I'm doing coaching. Somebody has a first call with a potential client and they get disappointed because the client didn't buy. You know, when I was training for a large corporation, our only objective was to get a second call. It wasn't right. And I'm sure, Marquita, that would have fit with your, I mean, you never expected somebody was going to buy from you. There was nothing there.
Not in the first meeting.
Not in the first meeting, right? Just get a second meeting.
Our best possible outcome was to determine, are they really a good prospect for us? You know, because then we knew if they were a good prospect, then we knew now we've got somebody we can go out and sell to.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, Bill, one thing too that I think it's important to touch on here is we certainly have heard your presentation in the context of selling a product for a company, but these tools and skills are something that everyone needs. Even if a person says to me, well, I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a salesman. The fact of the matter is, if you live a life, these skills are needed across the board. And I will share with you that one of the things that I do on the side has to do with career transition, which is as people lose their position in one company, that is finding a position or moving their career forward. And I often chat with clients that I consult in that environment to say, you're the salesman and you're the product.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you really approach job search using these tools that you've presented today, it means so much. And that's just one example of how the tools can be applied to a different situation. No, I'm not selling a company's product. I'm selling myself.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Totally. And there's so many opportunities in life. You know, if most people who are looking to get married think about these kinds of tools as they pursue that partner, you know, it really gets down to the core of that authenticity, you know, building the relationship, and then starting to talk about the features, advantage, and what is it that melds us together. It's a life skill, any way you look at it.
I'm telling you, Steve, we got the wrong person doing this presentation. Marquita.
We've discovered another diamond here.
I want to tell you what.
I didn't realize how passionate I was about selling, but I am. I really am. I tell Steve all the time, I don't want to sell. I want to be a deliverer, but I really am passionate about it.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy that. And I don't think Steve buys that either, Marquita.
Yep. The slip cover is off the chair. We can see what's really there now.
Yeah, we're seeing you in your true form today.
So we did get a couple comments, Bill, and not questions so much as comments, but Irene is saying great content, really appreciating the content of this presentation today.
Thank you. That's excellent. Yeah.
Very helpful.
I also suspect that this whole environment that we've all been living in for the past 8 or 9 months, right? Of you know, lockdown, and now we kind of re-engage slowly, and oops, we've engaged too heavy. Now we're going to have to lock back down again and be safe. I think there is an undercurrent of a zest for community and a craving for community that people really have. And I think that once we get on the other side of this thing and things begin to open up for real, I think there's going to be quite a wide opportunity for folks to engage with others and begin to, really explore community again.
Well, you were saying that one of the things you did in your earlier career, where you managed food service for prisons, people are going to feel like they got paroled.
Yeah, they're out in the sunlight.
They're gonna like, wow, look at this. I can actually go do something without all of this confinement. So yeah, it is people are gonna get paroled. It'll get crazy in a good way. I think I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we certainly hope so as well. Well, this is phenomenal, Bill, and this is very much like what E4E is about every month. So again, Bill started this this meeting process of really pouring into entrepreneurs and business owners on a monthly basis, and it's contrary to this particular message being focused on sales and growth. The E4E meetings are not focused on sales. As a matter of fact, you're forbidden to sell from the stage.
Yeah, we do not selling our products. We're not selling our products at all.
Yeah, it's all about knowledge and sharing wisdom, and really providing tools and support and guidance for folks to really take their business to the next level. And I think you can see from this short example that Bill's brought us today, the quality of the material is just second to none. It's just phenomenal.
So Steve and Bill both, as I hear this, it sounds to me like E4E is an excellent engagement for me and for many of our participants. Can you share with us how that engagement works? What would be a next step if someone really wanted to get more info and engage in a E4E? I guess it's an E4E meeting.
Yeah, and of course that will change once we get COVID under control. That'll change, and we'll go back to meeting in person. But right now we're doing monthly webinars, which is we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. But I would encourage people. We've got some people who are subscribed to us now who come very faithfully. So that would be the thing to do right now. Marquita, would be to come to one of our webinars. And if somebody would like to attend the webinar, they've got my number. Just give me a call, or I'll see to it that they come as my guest. There would be no cost.
Yeah, it's an incredibly expensive program. If you're a subscriber, I think it's less than $300 a year for the full year's content. Basically, 360, or excuse me, 36 detailed presentations that you get out of that. And I think you go as a guest for what, $29 a month, something like that. Something really about the price of a nice coffee with a one-on-one and with somebody. Yeah. So
I forget, Steve, you counted the number of videos that are on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, there's more than 330, but when we counted, there were about 330, and I know you've added some since then. So
yeah, we keep adding each month, but it's great stuff. And one of the things that we didn't mention is the presentations are all 15 minutes long. We pride ourselves in giving a lot of information without having to invest a lot of time, and it really, I think it really resonates with people. Marquita, I think you would like, because it's the partners work hard, and how do I get this said? It's important. How do I get this said without an hour's worth of time? This presentation today would never work for us in E4E because I wouldn't have that much time to do. I would have to pick out a certain portion of it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're getting up to 3:54, where we've got about 5 minutes left until the top of the hour. So I'm thinking that perhaps we should start winding down, Steve, unless there's something else that we need to do to summarize or present before we start the wind down process.
So again, I would encourage everybody. The website is e4ecommunity.com. Go to the website. You'll see the meetup groups. You can click on the meetup group if you want to attend one of the sessions. And while they are currently on Zoom, they're doing a phenomenal job on Zoom. They've started incorporating some breakout rooms to get some of the conversation going, and it's just phenomenal material. I can't recommend it highly enough. And so any of our listeners can go there and learn more about the programs, learn how to participate. And then Bill has graciously offered, if you want to go as a guest, reach out to Bill direct, and perhaps you can convince him to send you a guest pass and get you in that way.
Would love to do that.
And we'll make these slides, the PowerPoint slides, available. So I do believe one of those slides did have Bill's contact information on it. So know that you will get that with the follow-up email. And with that said, let's start the wind down process. So Bill, I'm going to give you an opportunity to summarize in any way you would like. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience today?
I can just say that I'm honored to be here today, Marquita. I'm honored to work with someone like you who's got probably more selling skills than I do, and how humble you are about it. I just love that. I love working with Stephen, so I'm just honored to be here today. That's really, I can't say it any other way.
We really appreciate having you. And then Steve, you get the absolute final word today. So you want to wrap us up?
Absolutely. And Bill, I would say likewise. We've been after you for several months here. We're glad to finally get on your calendar. You're a busy guy. You give a huge amount back to the community, and thank you for pouring into to our small community out there as well. We're very, very appreciative. This whole series that Innovative puts on every week is all about surviving, pivot, and thriving back through this challenge that we're all living. So E4E is a wonderful opportunity and a set of resources and trusted advisors that you can connect with and begin to engage with. And all of them will tell you, leave your checkbook at home. They're not in to get into your pocket at all. They're here to provide help, to help you navigate this uncertain time and get through this, and not only survive, but then be in a position where you can make the changes that are necessary to really thrive in your business. So we are huge fans. We are partners of the program, and we'll be engaged in it, and we just strongly endorse it and highly recommend it for our group. So again, Bill, we're very, very thankful. And to our audience, thank you for your attendance this week. And we hope everybody has a very blessed holiday next week. We will not be on next week, but we will see you the first week in December. So
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you.
Take care.